Welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Harlan, and this is my story. Zen and the Art of Overspray, a body man's wild ride. My true life adventures in a world of custom cars, paint fumes, dank bars, and fast women. And how I found my Zen in the isolation of a spray booth, one paint job at a time. Hope you enjoy the ride? I damn sure did. Chapter 3, Sparks and Skepticism. Wyatt wasn't sure why he kept coming back. At first, he told himself it was just to keep an eye on the truck. After all, he had paid good money for Harlan to fix it. But somehow, every time he stopped by, he ended up with a welding torch in his hand, a grinder throwing sparks at his boots, or his head stuck under a frame while Harlan rattled off some lesson about metal fatigue or load distribution. And the weird part? He didn't hate it. "All right, stop," Harlan said one afternoon, watching Wyatt lay down a bead along a fresh crossmember. Wyatt flipped up his hood. "What? That was clean." Harlan grabbed a hammer and smacked the weld. It cracked. Wyatt scowled. "You're enjoying this too much." Harlan chuckled. "Son, I don't enjoy seeing bad welds, but I do enjoy teaching folks how to do them right. You rushed it. Too much heat in one spot. Spread it out, let the metal breathe." Wyatt sighed, adjusting his stance. He wasn't used to being wrong this much. Online, people ate up his builds. His custom work had fans. But this was different. "How'd you get into this anyway?" Wyatt asked, trying to change the subject. Harlan leaned against the workbench, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Taught auto body repair for 30 years before I got sick of dealing with school budgets and politics. Figured I'd rather work with my hands than argue about which department gets how many welding rods." Wyatt smirked. "So you got tired of teaching, but now you're still doing it anyway?" Harlan shrugged. "Some habits don't die easy." Wyatt didn't say it, but he was starting to respect that. Over the next few weeks, the truck started coming together, and so did something Wyatt hadn't expected, a real sense of learning. He still didn't take everything Harlan said as gospel. He had his own ideas, his own style, but more and more, he found himself applying Harlan's lessons in his own work. His welds got stronger, his measurements more precise, and his designs, they started to have more than just flair, they had structure. One afternoon, as they were wrapping up, Wyatt watched Harlan run his hands over a finished frame rail, checking the welds by feel. There was something methodical about it, something almost reverent. "You love this stuff, huh?" Wyatt asked. Harlan grinned, but there was something tired in his eyes. "Son, you spend long enough doing something, it either breaks you or becomes part of you. This is part of me." Wyatt nodded. He didn't say it, but he was starting to feel it too. Chapter 4, Life, Work, and the Call of Paint. Wyatt never thought he'd trade the smell of hot metal for the hum of factory work, but life had a way of making decisions for you. The union job came with stability, good pay, benefits, and a schedule that let him be home in time for dinner. That mattered now. He wasn't just some kid in a garage chasing a dream. He was a husband, and soon enough, a father. Harlan knew before Wyatt even told him. "Let me guess," the old man said one evening when Wyatt stopped by the shop. "You got yourself a real job." Wyatt shrugged. "Union gig, steady work." Harlan nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. "Ain't nothing wrong with that. You do what you gotta do." Wyatt expected sarcasm, maybe some speech about how factory welding was killing his creativity, but Harlan just handed him a beer and leaned against the workbench. "Still gonna build on the side?" "Yeah," Wyatt said. "Can't let it go completely." "Good." And that was that. Chapter 5, The Return to the Shop. Wyatt's life shifted fast. Marriage, a baby girl, mortgage payments. The late nights in his own shop became fewer, the projects slower. But every now and then, when time allowed, he found himself back at Harlan's. Not for welding, for paint. Harlan had always been known for his fabrication skills, but Wyatt started to notice something else. The way he handled a paint gun. The way he mixed colors like an artist, layering depth and reflection onto every car that rolled into his shop. One evening, as Wyatt helped mask off a '69 Camaro, he finally asked, "How'd you learn to paint like this?" Harlan smirked. "Trial, error, and a whole lot of bad jobs before I got good." Wyatt watched him lay down a coat of candy apple red, the metal shimmering like liquid. He'd always thought of paint as just the finishing touch, but now, seeing it up close, he realized it was just as much an art as the build itself. "I want to learn," Wyatt said without thinking. Harlan didn't look surprised, he just nodded. Then grab a gun, let's see what you can do.